Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Testing audio. Can you hear me? Good. All right. So we shall start. So good afternoon, everyone. I know you're joining from different parts of the world today. It's a pleasure to welcome you to another Afrinic webinar series. Our webinar today is titled Navigating the ICP-2 Review Process. And in this session, we hope that we will provide you with an overview of the ongoing ICP-2 review, its potential impact, and how you, the Internet community, can contribute. Our webinars usually offer our community an opportunity to engage in dialogue on the current and future landscape of Internet accessibility and robustness in Africa. Today, we will see subject matter experts, or we'll hear subject matter experts engage on the work they have carried out in regard to the strengthening of the ICP-2, which is the criteria set for the accreditation of an RIR document. Before we begin, kindly type in the chat section to let me know if you can hear me and where you are joining us. Right, so we have colleagues joining us from South Africa, Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana, Accra, Malawi. Wonderful. Okay. So my name is Madhvi Gokul. I'm the Senior IP Resource Specialist at Afrinic, and I will be your moderator in this session. On to some house rules. I'm certain that most of you are familiar with the Zoom client application. However, it will not harm if we point out the key features on the platform that would make the session a much better experience. The user interface, all controls are at the bottom of the screen. These controls include the chat icons, raise hand icon, reactions, the poll, and the live transcription button. The Q&A section at the bottom of your screen can be used for any questions relating to this session. Please feel free to type in your question as the presentations are ongoing, and please ensure that your questions are relevant to the topic. These will be read out for the panelists to respond. All delegates can share the comments regarding the webinar in the chat. For any other issues relating to the Zoom platform, like your connectivity or any other issues, please use the chat section and team members will assist. This webinar is in English and the session is recorded and simultaneously transmitted live on Afrinic's YouTube page, where the recording will be archived for your reference. While there, be sure to hit follow. We have been trying real hard to level up everything we do this year, and the only thing we're ever going to ask you is for you to hit follow on our social platforms. Thank you. Finally, this meeting shall abide by the Afrinic Code of Conduct. Please, the Code of Conduct has been posted in the chat. So please be respectful as you engage with other participants on the webinar. The Afrinic Code of Conduct and the event terms and conditions are also available on the Afrinic website. Please take time to read them, and we also post the link. We have also posted the links in the chat. On our webinar today, we are privileged to have two panelists, Mr. Hervé Clément, who is the ASO-AC chair, and Mr. Kevin Bloomberg, who is an ASO-AC member. Hervé is from the Ribe region and has served on the ASO-AC since 2018, and his current term ends in 2026, while Kevin Bloomberg is from the Aran region and has served on the ASO-AC since 2016. Okay. If anyone present today attended the African Internet Summit in September this year, the ASOAC representatives, namely Hervé Clément and Nick Nugent, spoke about the ICP-2 review. We are thankful that the ASOAC has agreed to address the Afrinic community, including its resource members, in this webinar today. Without further ado, I will now request Hervé Clément to introduce himself, and then Kevin, and then we can start on with the presentations. So thank you very much and enjoy. I hope you enjoy the session. Over to you, Hervé.
Thank you very much, Madhvi. So first, can everybody listen to me? It's okay? Yes, thank you so much. So thank you, Madhvi, for this introduction. So I am Hervé Clément, so I have the pleasure to know you, probably some of you, so attending there, etc., because I have attending some Afrinic meeting, and so as you mentioned, Madhvi, the last Africa Internet Summit as well, and it's always a real pleasure to be with you and to be welcomed by the continent. So each time, so we had a very great welcome. So for that, thank you so much. I am Hervé Clément. Primarily, I work within Orange. So a lot of you knows Orange because it's the ISP present in some country in the African continent. And that's the reason why I was attending, so during the past, some Afrinic events like that, etc. And as you recall, Madhvi, so I am part of the ASOAC, and the first part of the presentation, so we will comment, will be a presentation on what is the ASOAC, what is the connection with the ICANN, and the different regions as well. So it was from me as an introduction, so I don't know if Kevin, you are here and you want to introduce yourself or perhaps later.
No, absolutely. Minus a slight voice issue. I'm Kevin Bloomberg. I am the president of the Toronto Internet Exchange up in Canada. I run my own little ISP as well. Very similar to Hervé, I've attended a number of Afrinics meetings over the years. It's been a couple of years now, but I definitely remember them quite well. And I've been assisting Hervé as the chair in helping with the planning, the timing of the ICP-2. Nick, who was mentioned earlier during the AIS summit, has been very, very involved in the questionnaire and the principles and getting those words done. So I'm more on the timing side of it, but I think we've all on the ASO spent a lot of time on this, and look forward to presenting and hearing some questions you may have.
Thank you, Kevin. And to precise, so just before me, so currently I am the chair of the ASOAC, but just before me, Kevin was the chair of this council as well, so he's very, very experienced in that as well. What I propose is to comment you some slides we have prepared, just to have something solid to base on. It will be more easy to understand the process. So as I said, I will first present on my side the ASO as a global function and so objectives, and then Kevin, as you say, so you shepherd so the timeline of the ICP-2, etc. So you will have the privilege to present more the ICP-2 per se. So let me share this one. Okay, and so again, let me tell if so you can see my screen on the dedicated slides. It's okay. Okay, perfect. So starting so from the head of the slides, so you can see two words, two acronyms, ICANN and the ASO. So ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Name and Numbers. So it's a global structure who is responsible for the management of numbers like IP addresses, ASN, etc., but also domain name system, etc. So when you type a name on your Google or something, etc., and when you go to the website, it's so partly because of the ICANN, you can do that because I can elaborate. So regarding the naming part, some rules about that, etc. Within the ICANN, you have a certain number of supporting organizations and AC as well. And beyond the supporting organization, you have a specific supporting organization, which is called the Addressing Supporting Organization, ASO. And it's the reason we are here now, so because we are part of the ASO, but as the word is not simple, the ASO is comprised of two bodies, the NRO-EC first, and the ASO-AC secondly. The NRO-EC is comprised of the four current CEOs of the regions. So you have the CEO of the RIPE NCC, Hans-Peter Holland, the CEO of the LACNIC, Oscar, the CEO of the ARIN, John Curran, and so the new CEO from the APINIC. And so you know the circumstance. So there's currently no CEO of the AFRINIC, but as soon as there will be a CEO, of course, it will be part of the NRO-EC. And the ASO-AC, so it's the Address Supporting Organization Address Council, is comprised normally of 15 people, volunteers from the communities, and 3 coming from each regions. So it was just as an introduction of what is the ASO. I go then to a general presentation of the ASO-AC, regular activities. So what it is, the ASO-AC? So it's a body, the ASO-AC, established by the Addressing Supporting Organization, and the role of the ASO-AC is to advise the ICANN and the ASO globally on number resource policies. So we meet so sometime during ICANN meeting, sometime we have joint session with the ICANN board of directors, and sometimes we have questions about number resource policies, and with the help of the NRO-EC, we can so provide some information we could have about number resource policies. So how it is organized, as I said, normally the ASO-AC is comprised of 15 members, 3 from each region, and in each region, you have 2 members elected at large. What is the meaning of elected at large is elected by the community during the regional meeting, and so on 1 member appointed by the executive board of the specific regions. For instance, within the RIPE regions, so I am the one appointed by the executive board of the RIPE NCC. The term of each member is different. It can be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. One more time, in the RIPE region, because it's the region I know, generally it's 3 years. What do we do as a ASO-AC? So we advise the ICANN board, as I said. You know that within each regions, there is policies governing so the IP addresses on the number of AS, but there is also a global policy. What is a global policy? It's a policy common to all regions and related to the function. IANA is a function within the ICANN governing the distribution of IP resources. So global policy deals with the relationship between the IANA and the regions. And the role of the ASO-AC when there is a global policy under discussion is to oversee if the process has been developed in a good way, so to be sure that the ratification of this global policy is okay. Our role is also to appoint 2 members of the ICANN board of members. So there are a little more than 20 directors of the ICANN, and the role of the ASO-AC is to appoint 2 directors for the seat 9 and the seat 10. And for instance, for the seat 9, it's Alan Barrett, so the ex-CEO of the Afrinic, who is appointed as a director. And there is also within the ICANN the nominating committee, which is a committee who elect or appoint people to other functions of the ICANN, and we appoint one member to this nominating committee. And we discuss and we meet monthly. We have a monthly call, which are open to observers. So it's important to mention. And and normally we have face-to-face meeting. I would say it's generally during the first ICANN meeting of the year, but depending on the circumstances, and we are facing particular circumstances because of the ICP-2 development, we have the opportunity to meet more often than that. Okay, so I say that normally the SOAC is comprised of 15 people. You see, and you are very concerned about that there is nobody from the Afrinic. Why? It's not a choice for us. It's totally a pity, as you can imagine, but it's because of the, I will say, the current circumstances, so regarding the decision of the Supreme Court of Mauritius, etc. So there is no decision possible. So it's not possible to take any election or any decision regarding that, etc. So that's the reason one. Currently, there's nobody from the Afrinic. So the last one was Sol Stein from South Africa. I saw that, Sol, so you are part of the attendees today, and your term finished at the end of last year. And we are 11. So because in the right region, so there was Sander Stefan on board of the SOAC, but he was elected as member of the executive board of the RIPE NCC, and it is in the RIPE region. It's not possible to be in the executive board of RIPE NCC and in the SOAC. So that's the reason why so we have nobody currently, but the next RIPE meeting will take place next week, and there will be the election for another councillor there. Okay. And so one important thing for us is transparency. And transparency is very important because so we are asked first to be transparent. But if we want a very solid decision, a very solid processes, etc., it's also, and for us, very important to be transparent. The only thing and the only discussion we are not transparent to is when we have discussion about the election or the appointment of somebody to the ICANN board of directors, something like that, etc. Because it's a question of, so we discuss of a person in particular, etc. But except the case, we have open discussion. We have open discussion, and you can be able even remotely to attend some face-to-face meeting we could have. Last time we met physically in ICANN 79 in San Juan. It was in March. And the next time we will meet, and it will be because of the ICP-2 as well, it will be during the next ICANN, the ICANN 81, we will take place in Istanbul in November. We have mailing lists, and mailing lists are open as well, so you can read. You cannot send message to that, etc. But what we write between ourselves are completely open, and you have the link to the archive. And as I mentioned just before, we meet so every month, generally the first Wednesday of each month. If not, it's because there is a regional meeting, so we meet the second Wednesday of the month, and you have the list of the date of the different meeting there at the end of these slides. And so just to have so something lively, etc. I have not finished so the presentation of the SOAC, but I will be very happy to answer some question if there is. Or there are, sorry.
Those who have questions, do you mind, please use the Q&A window to type in your questions. Susan, do we have any questions from the YouTube channel? No? Okay. I have one question. So, Hervé, the ASOAC members are volunteers, right?
Right.
They volunteer their time, okay? And how much time and effort on average per month is usually devoted to the ASOAC activities? I believe
So
there are ups and downs, but just let's inform the community because at some point in time we will have volunteers from the Afrinic community willing to join the ASOAC.
And definitely, and one more time, so we are waiting this time, so we will have Afrinic a representative within the ASOAC. So as I said, we have monthly meetings, so it's between 1 and 2 hours, the length of the meeting, and so we have the on-site meetings, so during an ICANN, etc. So there is a possibility, so to go on site in a specific meeting, etc. So at least once during 1 year. So that's the minimum of time you can dedicate to the ASOAC. But so you saw that there was different responsibilities as appointed somebody to the board of directors, etc. So it's something that can take a little time. So because you have so the different candidates to evaluate, there is interviews to conduct by subgroups of the ASOAC, but everyone is requested, of course, to attend the interviews and then to analyze the questions, to evaluate one more time the candidates, to do that, etc. And there are specific time tasks that can come up. During the last years, so there was, for instance, the ASOAC reviews, who had some additional tasks. Currently, there is the ICP-2, who add additional tasks as well, etc. So sometimes it's something light, and in different times, so you have to wait that there could be additional task to perform, but it's something very bearable when so you have another activities, of course, etc. And when you organize, it's pretty, I would say, at least pretty easy. But you have to be careful and to be dedicated. It's important when you are in the ASOAC to be dedicated in your functions. So it's my answer. I don't know if Kevin, you want to add something to what I said about that.
No, you've done a great job, Hervé.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Hervé. So there's a question in a Q&A from Mr. Paul Hull. He said, why are you placing blame at the Supreme Court and not at the former board who made unlawful acts? But I think it's related to your statement about there are
there is no
Afrinic representatives on the ASOAC. Would you like to respond?
I would like to respond, but
It's
not
just
100% because I don't think it's my responsibility and function
no,
to analyze that,
yeah.
etc. What just I wanted to say, it's not so it's not our responsibility. In fact, on our decision to have no Afrinic representative, so within the ASOAC, it's like that. We see that from the Afrinic, so there's no election. And so we just have to say, okay, so we realize there is nobody from the Afrinic, but the only thing I can say is we really wish to have some people from the Afrinic.
Sure. So it was a statement and not placing blame as
Exactly,
it was unjust. Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's actually, and Hervé, I think it's important to say we are observers externally. The benefit of having ASOAC members from the Afrinic community sitting and participating with us is they are not observers and they're able to help. They're able to see what's going on locally. So I think the main part of what Hervé was saying is that we are looking forward, very looking forward, to having the full ASOAC together.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we can proceed with the presentation.
Okay, with pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I told about the global policies. So normally, so I give the definition of what is a global policy is, etc. So it's our function to follow this type of development. And the first thing to follow is to track if in any regions, so there could be a source or a beginning of what could be called a global policy. So that's the reason why within the council there are dedicated members who are in charge of looking at what is going into the policy development process. So for 2024, there is Dima in charge of that within the APNIC, Nick Nugent. So for the people who have attending the African Internet Summit, you saw Nick presenting the ICP-2, Jorge Fila for the LACNIC region, and Constance Berger for the RAP region, and so for the Afrinic. So one more time, we will be happy to have somebody from the Afrinic looking at what happens in the policy development process. But so we decided that so we will of course also follow what is happening so within the African community for that. I said also that our function is to appoint people to the ICANN board of directors. So currently there is Alan Barrett for seat 9. His term is 2024, and we have Christian. So he was re-elected for a second term. So it's something I have to correct to that. So he was re-elected. And we have Christian Kaufmann from the RIPE NCC service regions, whose term ends in 2025. And so one more time, and for the NOMCOM, so his term is ending during this ICANN meeting. There was Ronda Silva from the arid regions as well, and we are considering the question for next year's. And that's the end of my part regarding the regular functions of the ISOAC. So I will be happy to answer some questions one more time if there are.
Do you have questions from the audience in the Q&A, please? Okay, there's one question about the representation. I think we can take that question at the end of the session.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? No? All right.
Yes, and I have just one question, but it's a question for Kevin as he will start his part of presentation. So do you want I manage the sharing of the presentation?
Please. I'm actually sitting at the NANOG conference in Toronto, Canada right now. So I'd appreciate that, Hervé.
No problem. So if Madhvi, you are okay, so I take the floor to Kevin.
Thank you. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you. So we're just going to start with a high-level overview of the timeline, how this sort of came into existence, and we'll start with the existence of what is ICP-2. Very short version, and then we'll go from there, is that ICP-2 was created. It is a document that sits within ICANN. It was agreed to by a number of parties back in the early days, 2001, that allowed for the creation of Afrinic and LACNIC. There were a lot of requirements, community support, etc. But the main point was Prior to 2001, there wasn't an ICP-2 document. It was done differently. And we came up, the community globally came up with the ICP-2 document, worked on it, and allowed for that. So there were stipulations. Again, if you haven't had an opportunity to look at the original ICP-2, I do recommend it. There's terminology in there that is very current from 2001, not so current in 2024. I don't believe content networks or cloud networks or any type of those scenario existed back in our nomenclature, in our terminology back then. So when ICANN, ARIN as an example, was founded prior to the ICANN formation. When ICANN was formed in 1998, the ICP-2 document was proposed by the ASOAC at the time. None of the ASOAC that you see today on that list were part of the creation of that document in 2000. I know we've been asked that, oh, you're working on it again. The U, those were very different people, was from there. And then the ICP-2 was adopted in 2001, LACNIC, and then AFRINIC were established a few years later. We go to the next slide. So in October of 2023, the NRO-EC asked the ASOAC, asked us, with two specific tasks. The one was the creation of an implementation procedure. One was to review and advise the NRO-EC on an implementation procedure, which we completed. I believe it took us about 2 months. We sent our feedback to the NRO-EC, and that task was marked as completed. The second task was strengthening of ICP-2, and that was to establish and manage a process to update ICP-2 in 2024 and 2025 to provide the RIR system with better accountability in the internet, to the internet community. So if you notice in that review project, the NRO-EC gave us a long amount of time to work. They gave us essentially 2 years to work on this document, which allowed us to, as an example, be having this webinar today. It gave us a lot of time to have community consultations, multiple community consultations. We can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, back one. So we'll talk about timeline a little later. So there's the key part to this is we were tasked with it, and we started the process in October of 23. I believe the timeline that we got the first part done, and we started on the review process shortly thereafter. And with the review process, it was focusing on timelines first. That was the most important thing, was timelines and how we were going to structure this in a way that gave the community a great opportunity to give us feedback, work on the document, and then collaborate on it. So we'll hold here, and I'll see if there are any questions.
Okay, do we have questions from the audience? Please use the Q&A. All right, well, if I have one question, Kevin. Why the ASOAC and not another entity?
So the ICP-2 document, first of all, the ASOAC is one of the supporting organizations in ICANN. The ASOAC was the group that wrote the ICP-2 originally, and the ASOAC was actually tasked inside of ICP-2 with reviewing it. So that is why there's a lot of community consultation that goes on, a lot of interest. I'm not sure who else would be doing that work. We were the ones that did it originally, and now, in fact, it was asked both inside of the document as well as we were asked by the NROEC. It was not a self request.
Thank you. So I'm checking the Q&A. Okay, there's a question from Mr. Paul Hull. His question is, what safeguards to align the ICP-2 to the proper interest of the internet at large, as opposed to cleaning up after RIRs exist?
Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult to speak to specifics. That's not the issue is that we felt that doing a principles document first where the words were not the focus, where everybody was not hanging on a specific word within the document. And we were going through and making sure that the very first and foremost was the principle was there and that people are aligned on it, and there was feedback, there were questions, there was discussion, and we could then use that and incorporate that. Was the best way of dealing with the rewriting and the cleanup of a massive document in terms of its involvement globally. So that is why the principles document is there, and we are seeking as much feedback as possible. As you can see with the principles, we are asking for the community to support or not support or provide feedback on a number of areas, including safeguards within ICP-2. So both, there will be different, I think the best way to say it, there will be different controls and requirements in ICP-2 depending on what the community wants. I'm not going to put words in the community's mouth today and say, oh, they want a much tighter control or whatever. We need to see the results of this document before we can go there. The questionnaire.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Any further questions? Susan, do we have questions on the YouTube channel? No questions from the YouTube channel. So can we proceed to the next slides?
Thank you. So I sort of alluded to some of this already, and I will sort of go now a little deeper into the timelines because this got asked in the chat as well. So we finished the implementation document in January of 24. We met in Montevideo. We had a multi-day meeting in Montevideo at the end of January, and we provided the NROEC with written feedback on our implementation procedures. Again, that was the first step. That was not ICP-2, the ICP-2 question. And we started our work in March of this year at the ICANN meeting on ICP-2. So in March of 2024, we started working on the draft, which was the 4 principles that we talked about. And that is what the questionnaire is all about. If you can go to the next slide. Thank you. we've published the principles document, and at this point, we now have the public consultation, both within the priority and ICANN is running a public comment period right now. And the only difference, I think, right now is, as an example, the Aaron meeting is this week. On Friday, I will be doing an update very similar to this. It will probably be less time because it's just part of the overall meeting for questions and answers. But we're doing almost an identical process of doing discussion and outreach that this is going on at the RIR meetings. This webinar is actually, I think, far more informational than what we will see at possibly some of the other RIRs. In the draft, once we've got the questionnaire and the results from the questionnaire, we can then work on an actual drafting of ICP-2. We expect that to go into July of 2025. There will be community feedback. There'll be a set of questions, and we'll be looking for more feedback during that process. And then we will pass this document that's had these revisions, etc., to the MROEC and to ICANN, and they will work out if there are any issues, if there's any changes that need to be made, etc. Because ultimately, between the NRO-EC and ICANN, they will be the main users of this document. So that will then go in September, and hopefully by the end of the year, next year, this process will have fully wrapped up. So one last part, we have kept fairly well on the timeline. It has not changed much, slight adjustments here and there. We maintain a more detailed calendar for tracking specific dates and things like meetings, etc. But overall, we've kept fairly on track with the work that we wanted to do. Past performance does not equal future performance. The dates that were listed here are what we are working towards. And so far it's been good, but I just wanted to say that this is not anything that is in stone, because it's obviously we would rather do this right than meet a specific deadline and not have the perfect document.
Thank you, Kevin. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A window. There's one from Mr. Felix Opili. I'll read it out, and you can also check it in the Q&A window. So he was saying he might be thinking ahead of presentation as the ICP-2 review moves further. How does the ASO plan to incorporate stakeholder feedback meaningfully? And are there any key themes that have emerged in the feedback so far?
Thank you. So this questionnaire is on the principles and is the first stage of the feedback that we're seeking from all the stakeholders. There will be a second round, which is once we've taken all of that feedback and applied it to the actual draft text, there will be an opportunity for feedback there, more presentations, etc. I haven't seen any of the feedback or any of the results from the questionnaire to date, so I can't really comment on that. But this is absolutely, there will be more steps, Felix, and I appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you. And there's one question from Fernando Frediani. Will the new ICP-2 different from the current one? State clearly that a RIR must keep following it in order to stay compliant with the principles that created each RIR.
That's a great question. That's where the questionnaire is for. If you agree with that statement, you are welcome to show your support inside of the principal's questionnaire, as well as if you don't support it, there is a rank from 1 to 5 that you can select your level of support, as well as there is place for feedback and comments if you have more specific, nuanced or items you want to add to any of these.
Thank you. Then there is one question from Fiona Songa. When an RIR fails to adhere to the principles as set out in the ICP-2 of the establishment, then what happens? In the absence of a guideline on a way forward, what would be the purpose of the ICP-2, just establishing a new RIR?
Thank you. So, Fiona, in the current principles questionnaire, there are more items than the creation of an RIR. There is items that sort of speak to what you're talking about. But our main point was we need the community to support that so that we can move forward. So yes, the goal is to add more parts to the ICP-2 process, to not just be about the creation of, but about the continuation of an RIR. That is a much more complicated, and that's why we wanted the principle there, and not just pages of draft text on that. So yes, that is the ongoing obligations of an RIR, I think, are very important.
Okay, I think we need to encourage the participants to read the principles document before so that they can understand the questionnaire, and then submit their feedback for the questionnaire.
It is absolutely helpful to read through the principles document first. There will be the same things on the questionnaire, but it's definitely easier when you see it in one piece of paper.
Okay, we have one comment from Fernando Frediani about NRFC that forbids any person to appeal from RIR decision to IANA, which should have been kept. That may create an appeal on local courts, which is never desirable. So would the ASOAC welcome that such feedback in the questionnaire?
Sorry, I'm not aware of an RFC, and an RFC is request for comment. I think that that's outside of what our questionnaire is, and sort of even outside of the scope of what the ASOAC will be working on.
Okay.
We are not, we're not ICANN, and we're not the RIRs. We are just here to provide feedback to those organizations with examples, etc.
Thank you.
And when supporting what Kevin just said, etc. So I would say that the ISOAC so currently, of course, has an important role to do that, etc. But don't think we have a too important role to do that, etc. So we are, I would say, just there to answer the request from the NRAC primarily. So to answer the question and to update the ICP-2, etc. The idea is not to create anything from scratch, but just to update and to take into account what happened in the 20 last years, etc., and to have something consistent, etc. And for very specific legal problematics, etc., when something another update will be so taken place, put in place. So of course there will be so some specialists, some lawyers, etc. who will be able to discuss with the good people to solve the specific problematics for that.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank you, Hervé. Thank you, Hervé. There's one final question from Fernando Frediani. Will the final text have to be discussed on all policy forums or just and only by the ASO?
Thank you. And Fernando, your question is exactly why, and I want to walk through this, why we're doing principles now and text later. The reason is, will the final text, what is final text? Is final text a statement on the level of text, as an example? Will it be discussed on all policy forums? What are the policy forums? Whose policy forums? And just by the ASO. So partially, the answer is we will open up questions very similar to what we've done today for the community to review our draft text and allow us to complete the work in time. Will the final text be the one? The final text is just the text that finally goes to the NROEC and ICANN after having been worked on a number of times. And we're going to be working with it in a very similar way to getting as much feedback as we can in this process. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure what all policy forums are or what final text is. And that's, I guess, part of why we're being very cautious with dealing with the text first and not principles first.
Thank you, Kevin. No further questions in the Q&A. Susan, do we have questions from the YouTube? Check. Okay, doesn't seem that we have questions from the YouTube channel. There's one question about representation. Okay, if the comments, so I'll take that question. If it means how to be an Afronic representative on the ASO/AC. So usually Afronic will proceed with a call for volunteers, stating the ASO the position, the ASO/AC, so seeking volunteers to be an ASO/AC representative. There would be some criteria, the eligibility criteria, and the term that the person shall fill. So there will be a call for volunteers, and the call for volunteers usually happens on our mailing list, and interested individuals are encouraged to check the eligibility criteria, etc., if they have the time and effort to put in the work that currently the ASO/AC does. Then there is an election during an Afronic meeting to select, for the community to select their 2 members to represent Afronic on the ASO/AC. So I hope that clears it. If you're not yet subscribed to our mailing list, please do so. The call is usually announced on our announced mailing list. So you need to subscribe and follow the communications as and when they happen. So it's 6 o'clock in my time. I'm seeing one last comment. Let's see if it's according to this topic. Okay, Mr. Paul Hull wants to confirm that the ICP-2 review is not intended to be introduced in a piecemeal fashion. And and that existing mechanisms must be used and not delayed in the belief that the landscape may change. But I think that's a statement and not
I can answer the first
a
question. I can answer the first question, actually.
Okay, all right.
There are a lot of stakeholders that are participating in this process. You have the RIRs, you have the RIR legal teams who are reviewing terminology and wording and other things. You have the ICANN, you have ICANN staff, you have ICANN, you have the communities. This question is not a question for the ASOAC in that we would not be looking necessarily, unless it's asked of us, to look between the relationships of arbitration and MOUs and all of that. We are here to write a document on the best path forward, and it's then for the RIRs and ICANN to agree to that. So our scope is not as the final arbiters of everything. It is to just provide a document that can then be used based on the feedback of all of the stakeholders, can be used by the RIRs, by ICANN, and by the community. That is, we're here to just to generate a document following a good bottom-up process.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, so we on our a final round. Do you have any further comments or encouragements to the community in regard to the questionnaire? To this community who is listening to you today?
Hervé?
So, so sorry for that, etc. So it was really a pleasure also one more time. So to not to listen to ourselves because we know ourselves, but so to read your questions or your interests about that, etc. So the thing is, so we have established the questionnaire, etc. We will be very happy one more time that you, as an African continent community, so participate in the questionnaire. Because if we want to have something stable, something in terms of consensus, etc., the most important thing is to have all the communities involved in that, in the discussion, in the questionnaire, etc. And so as an African continent, so you are a part equal to the others, to these discussions. So we can just encourage you to participate in. I think that so Madvi and all the Afrinic staff have shared the dedicated links, sorry, to do that, etc. And so your view, because you have a specific view which is very interesting and very precious, will be very helpful to help us to advance in the process. So we are waiting for you.
Kevin?
Thank you. I think Hervé touched on a important part, which is globally, countries, regions, etc., all have a different perspective, and that perspective can be incredibly helpful. Even if the ASO today was completely full with 15 participants, we would still be missing many views. We've got a good sense and a good set of views, but it's the community that we really need to get that participation from, the insights from. While it may look in some cases like the one person is saying yes and one person is saying no, in many cases, it's really, they both agree just in different ways. And that is very helpful to us in this process. So anybody who is able to respond, especially with feedback, would be very appreciated.
Thank you. So we posted the link to the questionnaire in the chat. It takes 7 to 10 minutes, all right? And we encourage you to also read the principles document. You also have the link to that, and then fill in the questionnaire. One other request is that you also share the information with your peers who could not attend this webinar today. The recording will also be online, so any member of the community, if they missed this webinar, can still catch up. But we are looking for a high number of feedback from the Afrinic community to this consultation. And there will be more consultations as the work on the ICP-2 review carries on, and we're hoping that the community will respond again when the consultations are open in future. It's not a work that will finish this year, so it's going on into 2025. We're hoping that those who joined us today engage further and also stay with us, stay with the ASOAC until they've completed their work on the ICP-2 review, the new ICP-2, and also provide their feedback along the way as and when the feedback is sought. So, which brings us to the end of this session. So, at the end of this webinar, a survey will pop up on your screen. We request you to fill in the survey to help us make your experience in the Afrinic webinars even better. It would be nice to get a rating from you. So please spare a minute or two to complete the survey. Okay. Please join me in thanking Hervé Clément and Kevin Bloomberg for their time spent to address the Afrinic community today and for their insightful presentation and discussion. And on this, I would like to thank you all for taking 1 hour and attending this webinar. And we are looking forward to hearing from you, having your feedback on the questionnaire, on the principles document. The questionnaire is already open and closes on November, I think, 18th, right? Can we have a confirmation of the closing date of the questionnaire? Hervé?
I was checking, but it's approximately the date. So the questionnaire will finish. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you very much. And thanks again, Hervé and Kevin. We appreciate you.
Pleasure, really.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you to you all.
Yeah, the survey closes on the 19th of November.
It was one day difference, but perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.